My name is Robert Sacedo. I'm sorry, they reminded me of this. My name is Dr. Robert Sacedo. I am President and CEO of Community Build in Los Angeles. And we are partnered with Willie Daniels with Shades of Blue. We are part of the California operation and some of the more national work that we're doing with Shades of Blue. I will be co-emceeing with him today, and I flew in a few days ago to hang out with family and be loved on and enjoy this moment with you all today. So I'm going to call Willie Daniels to the microphone at this time to join me as he comes. I'll tell you a little bit about our organization. So we're a broad spectrum social service agency that does everything from gang intervention, prevention, housing development, public policy, and workforce development around aviation, aerospace, space, and healthcare careers. So we're a pretty broad spectrum agency, and Shades of Blue is definitely a big part of what we do, and we continue to do that work together. And the most important part of what I do is I'm also Willie's cousin, and he's my favorite cousin. So I want to bring him to the microphone at this time. Willie?
Good afternoon, everybody. Wow, let me try that again. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm one of those faces that when you would get on an airplane, you'd always say, good afternoon, everyone, this is your captain speaking. But we was always facing forward, and you guys were always behind me, so I never got a chance to see you. So now I got a chance to look out in the audience and see you face to face. But today, it's a historic day. And not only a historic day here in Colorado, but a historic day for our nation. Because this is a unique opportunity to be here and present these distinguished individuals and recipients with a historic honor, the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award, and for voluntary service. And you know, if I'll talk a little bit about each one of these individuals because every one of them is special to me, and they all have a relationship that go back decades. And so I'll talk about that here shortly. But in just a minute, I would like to invite our presenter here. And this gentleman travels all around the world representing the White House. And he also is the same gentleman that presented me with my Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award last year. And you know, I thought this was such a special award that I wanted to make sure that while I had an opportunity to recognize some of the people that I have worked with for many, many years, and without being able to do that, if no one steps up and say, hey, thank you for your service, for what you're doing for our nation, a lot of times they get missed out. And so what I'd like to do is take this opportunity to introduce Chief Apostle Dr. Kenneth Curry, who will be our ceremony specialist to present the awards. So Dr. Curry.
Good afternoon, everyone. And we are truly proud to be here in Denver, Colorado. A little colder than I'm normally used to, but whenever you can come and do something very special for special people, and as we present this award is not given to everyone, but there are those that go above and beyond to create an atmosphere that makes not only themselves, but those people around them better. And so when that happens, there are people that call those names to my attention as a certifying agent for the President's Volunteer Service Award program. I hear so many names of people who are doing extraordinary things. And so I bring that to the attention of the administration. And through the administration, we are always honored to present those people with the President's Lifetime Achievement Award. Today, we honor a group of people, men and women, for all the work that they've done for the communities and to make this nation better as we stand to kind of submit the legacy of President Joseph R. Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. We thank them for their commitment to this country and to our Constitution. At this time, I would like to begin our presentation, and I would ask our previous recipients to please come and stand with us. We are most certainly glad to have these honorees. They exemplify a high level of service to the community, and joining them today is none other than Charlie Johnson.
If your camera can sweep a little bit, is one of the most beautiful collections of aviation artifacts here at this center. And we have another facility at the Centennial Airport where we actually do Young Eagles, to give airplane rides out of there. So come let us inspire you. First of all, look around, you'll get good museum history, and then we can take it farther than that with airplane rides and educational opportunities. We feel that our mission here at Wings Over the Rockies to educate and inspire people, young people, and Shades of Blue does that incredibly well, what they do with young people. So when we're able to partner with them, it creates an absolutely ideal situation for bringing more people into aviation. It is a tremendous opportunity to be involved with aviation and space, and that anybody that has the motivation can be successful. To me, that's the gigantic takeaway here, is that once you get the fire lit, just go run with it and enjoy life and develop a career.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the White House, I would like to read the letter which goes to all the recipients here today from President Joe Biden. The American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us. I congratulate you on taking it upon yourself to contribute to the public good, and I'm proud to present you with the President's Lifetime Achievement Award in recognition of your over 4,000 hours of service to this great nation. Throughout our country's history, the American story has been strengthened by those who combine an optimism about what can be with the resilience to turn that vision into reality. I know I'm not alone in recognizing those who are willing to step up in volunteer service of community and country are essential to the ongoing work of forming a more perfect union. By sharing your time and passion, you are helping discover and deliver solutions to the challenges we face, solutions that we need now more than ever. We are living in a moment that calls for hope, light, and love. Hope for our future, light to see our way forward, and love for one another. Through your service, you are providing all three. On behalf of the American people, I extend my heartfelt appreciation to you for your volunteer leadership, and I encourage you to continue to answer the call to serve. The country is counting on you. Signed, Joseph R. Biden, President of the United States. He also receives this gold medal Just like the Olympics, there's the bronze, there's the silver, but you always want to get the highest one, which is the gold. He is also receiving, thank you, sir. Thank you. There's more. Oh, there's more. Yes, there's a whole lot more. He's also receiving this distinguished lapel pin, which states that he is a recipient of the President's Lifetime Achievement Award. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the award, Lifetime Achievement Award, with grateful recognition, the AmeriCorps and the Office of the President of the United States honors Charlie B. Johnson with the President's Lifetime Achievement Award for their long life commitment to building a stronger nation through volunteer service. Signed, Joseph R. Biden, Jr., President of the United States, given under my hand this year, 2024, awarded.
Y'all are the ones that deserve all this. Thank you, sir.
And ladies and gentlemen, now our next recipient, John Barry. Lifetime Achievement Award. With grateful recognition, the AmeriCorps and the Office of the President of the United States, John L. Barry, with the President's Lifetime Achievement Award for their long life commitment to building a stronger nation through volunteer service. Signed, President Joseph R. Biden, Jr., this year, 2024, awarded. Gold medal. Good? All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Our next honoree, Ralph H. Durgans.
Kids. Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Lifetime Achievement Award with grateful recognition, the AmeriCorps and the Office of the President of the United States honors Ralph H. Durgans with the President's Lifetime Achievement Award for their long life commitment to building a stronger nation through volunteered service. Signed, President Joseph R. Biden Jr., given under my hand, this year 2024 awarded. Thank you, sir.
Sorry about this. Oh, we're okay. Oh. How's that? That's good. Turn this way. I'll look at you.
And now our next honoree, Vanessa Blacknell Jimerson.
As a previous board member and still a board member for Shades of Blue, the foundation, well, the organization was founded based on Willie's desire and need to give back to the community. He started this in, if I'm not mistaken, 89 or 90, and he has been diligent in educating all the kids across the country.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
That's me. All right. They shortened it. That's okay.
Lifetime Achievement Award with grateful recognition, the AmeriCorps and the Office of the President of the United States honors Vanessa B. Jimerson with the President's Lifetime Achievement Award for the long life commitment to building a stronger nation through volunteered service. Signed, President Joseph R. Biden Jr., given under my hand this year, 2024 awarded.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And remember, each one of these honorees that receives the award, their name goes into the archives for President Joe Biden. Everyone's good? And our next honoree is Dr. Andre Lanier. Lifetime Achievement Award with grateful recognition, the AmeriCorps and the Office of the President of the United States honors Dr. Andre K. Lanier with the President's Lifetime Achievement Award for the long life commitment to building a stronger nation through volunteer service. Signed, President Joseph R. Biden Jr., given under my hand this year, 2024, awarded. You all have joined a great alumni of recipients of this very distinguished award. However, one of the honorees was not able to be here at this particular time, and that is in the person of one of our distinguished honorees, and that is Ed Dwight. But I'm going to allow Captain Daniels to come forward and speak on behalf of Ed Dwight.
One of my instructors had a special visitor that was going to come to our school and speak to us. And this visitor was one of his former test pilot cadets when he was stationed out of Edwards Air Force Base by the name of Captain Ed Dwight Jr. I had an opportunity to meet him in 1977, and I told him that he had grown up in Kansas City with a lot of my family members. And at the time, he knew all of my grandparents, my mother, and my aunt. Ed was able to get me an application to apply to become an astronaut. And I had an opportunity in 1977 to apply for an astronaut. Unfortunately for me, there was not a lot of role models out there that I could follow. And so I did not know how to get from point A to B to become an astronaut. I was still in college, so part of the requirements is you had to have graduated from college. You had to have an engineering degree. And many of the pilots that were being selected at the time were military pilots. I was a civilian pilot. And when you graduated, you also had to have something that was relevant that would be able to be used in the space program. And many of these individuals were test pilots. I was on a path to be an airline pilot and not on a path to be an astronaut.
So let's walk this way into the studio. There's a group of people who know me as Ed Dwight, the artist. And they had no idea that I was involved in anything about space. I was going to be the first black astronaut. I completed astronaut training. Everything that we did, and I did it well. And if politics had changed, I would have gone into space in some kind of capacity. Everybody has this thing about how angry I must have been, how disappointed I must have been. As I look at it philosophically, my role in the whole process was to open up a conversation about blacks in space. And so I served a purpose, and I was very, very proud of it. I started out with this art career about 45 years ago, and I had never sculpted before in my life. At the time, there was no way to find any black imagery in city parks, museums, galleries. And I thought the black people have contributed to America needs to be honored. I thought the whole idea of going to space with Blue Origin was a fascinating last chapter.
He would have been the first black astronaut. That is history that needs to be changed.
There's a lot of people that are happy, and I'm more worried about making other people happy than making myself happy, so that all worked out. But when the rocket is roaring and the rumbling and the noise, I think that I would enjoy the hell out of. I really, really want to do this because each person that goes up there all of a sudden has a totally different perspective of this little place here. Space can bring people together. If everybody went to space for a space mission and say, oh my God, this place is workable. Oh, it's workable. Let's go back and make it work.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, command engine start, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff.
Bottom left of your screen, the altimeter on the left, altimeter on the right, and the speedometer on the left.
10,000 feet.
Now I understand that separation of the capsule from the booster has been confirmed. And 0G has started for our astronauts. Shortly here, we're going to let them unbuckle and enjoy the beauty of floating around in 0G, but of course, the spectacular views out of those windows. And I'll say that having passed over 330,000 feet, they are over the Kármán line, so welcome to space, astronauts. The rocket is going to speed the capsule back down to the ground because it's more aerodynamically shaped. And once it hits atmosphere, we've got a multitude of aerodynamic surfaces that are going to guide it back to its landing pad just 2 miles north of the launch pad. Stable, and there we go. BE-3 engine relight. Landing gear deployed.
50 feet, 8 feet per second. Touchdown. Autosum started.
And touchdown. Welcome home, New Shepard. What a beautiful flight to space and back for that booster. But the show is not over. The crew capsule has deployed its guide parachutes and its mains. Everything looking nominal on today's flight. Looks like we do have 2 parachutes that have full inflation. The third is not quite fully inflated. But actually, Jackie, this is part of the design. We were talking about my webcast. The first webcast that we did, we tested a chute out. There are multiple redundant factors in this system, and so landing with 2 parachutes is perfectly okay for this system. Landing the rocket is just really one of the proudest moments because it shows the incredible engineering. It isn't magic. It is not on, Jackie. The engineering that has gone into bringing, building, designing, testing, flying.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming down nice. Look at the cars
Space,
going.
ready to be reused. You see very quickly thereafter.
There we go. Safely down. Here they go. There go the cars.
Touchdown of the crew capsule. A beautiful flight for our rocket, for our crew capsule, for our 6 new astronauts, Mason, Sylvain, Ken, Carol, Gopi, and Ed. You are officially astronauts. Welcome home, everybody. And here exits Ed Dwight. This gentleman has waited a long time to go to space.
Long time coming.
Selected in the early 60s as the first black astronaut to fly, although he did not get to fly then, today was his opportunity, and man, what a flight for him. Finally, an official astronaut.
I am ready.
Overwhelmed, everything you can think of. And I thought I really didn't need this in my life, but now I need it in my life. This is fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for being part of this.
All right, I am ecstatic.
Ecstatic. Did anything surprise you? What was it like looking at Earth?
Well, yeah, the transitions about the separations and stuff were a little bit more dynamic. I mean, they were nice, smooth, but that's how it's supposed to be. But it makes your mind wander. There's something wrong with it. No, it was absolutely terrific, and the view. I mean, it was, even I couldn't see it, I could see it. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely. This is a life-changing experience. Everybody needs to do this.
Everybody needs to do this.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ed had to travel back to Annapolis today and was not able to attend. So I'm here to represent him in his receipt of this huge honor. And there's a possibility that next month in January, Ed is going to be receiving an award from the governor here in Colorado. And I'm hoping that we might be able to make that presentation to him for this distinguished honor at that time. So we'll be working on that. What I'd like to do is I'd like to take a couple of minutes and tell you a little bit about Shades of Blue and how we came to do this and how we came to be here today. And Shades of Blue was started initially in 1999. I'll just take about a minute or so to talk to that, because what I'd like to do is I'd like to have you hear from each one of the recipients. I'd like to have them take a couple of minutes each to talk a little bit about who they are, so that the audience will have an opportunity to know who these distinguished people are and why they were selected today to be a part of this distinguished program. Well, we started Shades of Blue in 1999 with the idea of taking airline pilots alongside of engineers and scientists from our working environment into the classrooms, K through college, to make it relevant why the students were learning what they're learning. But, you know, having gone in and out of schools over the years, and I saw, you know, a lot of times you go into a classroom, you speak to a kid, and you walk away, and that student will never see you again. But we created a mechanism whereby we can get the students engaged in our organization, and we can mentor them, point them in the right direction. We track them all the way through college. When they come out of college with the right credentials, then we can help run their resumes into those HR departments and help them find a job in the industry. As of right now, we have roughly about 25 young people who started back with us in as early as 2001 and 2. One young man, I just helped present his wings to him at United Airlines just this past month, and he just became captain for United Airlines, flying for on 737s, Mr. Kenyatta Ruffin. We have about 25 young people all flying for the major airlines, and Shades of Blue said that what we will do is we will judge our success on whether or not these individuals actually found employment at the end of their goals. So when they register with Shades of Blue as a young person, we usually have them write out an essay what their lifetime goals are, and then that way we can track them on a long-term basis, and then when the timing is right, they can join into the workforce. Well, Kenyatta was one of those individuals that was at the Air Force Academy at the time, and now he's a colonel, retired from the Air Force, working in the reserves, and also a captain for United now. We have another young lady, I'll just mention her, but we have several more that I won't mention. My own niece started back in 2004 or 5 with Shades of Blue, and she ended up in college, junior college, following in my footsteps, and graduated back in 2007. And after that, she decided to go into the Army, went into the Army, and spent 3 years in the Army, and got a GI Bill after she came out. Went and got all of the rest of her flight certificates, and after doing that, she went and started working for flight instructing. After flight instructing, started working for an airline called ExpressJet, ended up with NetJets and several other airlines, and now she's flying as an Airbus 320 first officer for Delta Airlines. And these are the types of success stories. We have individuals working in the aerospace industry, like NASA, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and the whole works. So we're seeing those types of successes. Our country is going to be needing a lot more workforce coming up in the future, and especially in the next few years with well-qualified individuals to be able to take over from these distinguished individuals and follow in their footsteps. And that's what this is all about. And so I'm very honored to be here to represent you guys and to have recommended and nominated each one of you for this distinct honor. And but I now would like to take each one, starting with Charlie. I'd like to have you come over and say a few words about who you are. Charlie and I, and I'll tell you a little bit, we go back, Charlie and John and I started together here at the Wings over the Rockies back around 2006 and 7. So we've known each other for almost 18, 19 years working together. Charlie joined Shades of Blue as one of our board members and jumped in with both feet and everything, and has been here supporting us along with the Wings over the Rockies as a chairman of the board here at the Wings. So Charlie, I'd like to give you the mic.
So I got to tell y'all, you have to watch out for Willie. I had zero knowledge of me having the opportunity to say something to you, and they're all sitting there going, what am I going to say? But that's the bottom line is I had the privilege of meeting Willie when I first moved back to Denver, and he is a genuine inspiration, as he is with all the young people that he deals with. He started with United Airlines as a flight attendant, always dreamed of being a pilot, dreamed of being an astronaut, and he wanted to pass that on to everybody, to have people to have that type of opportunity. I had the good fortune of meeting him. It was about the time, and I could take about 5 hours to give you the history, and I'm going to try to take about 4 minutes, but met John and myself, and John was the superintendent of the Aurora School District at the time, and he and Willie got together. They made the facility available. John was a tireless instructor out there with young people. I started doing that myself, did some ground school work with them, and advanced and watched it grow from a handful of students that we had at that time. And one of the things that if I leave no other impression, one of the things that impressed me the most of everything that Willie's done, everything that Shades of Blue has done, it is a true inspiration. And when we would teach the ground school, and I think John can reaffirm that, not only were the young people there at the tables learning, I never met young students that worked harder than they did, and they came from pretty disadvantaged backgrounds. And oh, by the way, in the back of the room, there were always the parents supporting them very strongly. So it shows the strength of what our country can do, support a family, support of somebody like Captain Daniels, if you will, with Shades of Blue, and it is a privilege to be with Vanessa, with Ralph, with Dr. Lanier. To be on a stage or up in front of people like this, they're the ones that made it happen. I've got a thing about leadership, and this exemplifies it tonight. And Willie, you kind of started, but you find a parade, and then you get out in front of it. And that's good leadership, because those are the folks that do the work. And Willie and all of you, thank you very much, and appreciate it.
Thank you. The next gentleman I'd like to invite up, I'll tell a quick little story. One of our other board members was a retired Major General, Craig Hackett. And Craig was retired from the Army, and Craig joined Shades of Blue. And one day, I got with Craig and said, Craig, I have a meeting set up at Denver Public Schools, and another one set up at Aurora Public Schools. And so I said, would you mind joining me at this meeting to meet with these folks to talk to them about Shades of Blue? So Craig travels over from Colorado Springs. We go by Denver Public Schools, and we meet the folks over there. And what was really interesting about, we met and spoke with one of the board members for about an hour, and we talked to her and told them about what we'd like to do is bring some folks in and talk to the students in the school district. And so after about an hour, we finished our conversation, but she says we have a group of volunteers that screen anybody that wants to come in and talk to our kids, and we'll introduce you to them. So after that, she says, but we just don't want a bunch of old men coming in boring our kids to death. And I'm saying, wow, and so General Hackett and I walked out. We left, when we got in his car and was driving over to Aurora Public Schools, and we looked at each other and said, wow, did you hear what she just said? I said, I guess I'm an old man now, and I don't want to bore kids to death. So we leave there, and we go over to Aurora Public Schools, and I had met John not long before that. And he joined the board at the Wings Over the Rockies, and the next time I see him, I have the television on, and I'm watching CNN News. And I see John Berry, and John and his assistant was walking around Aurora, knocking on. Okay. Thank you. You can leave it. Okay. Yeah, because he's recording. Okay. Test. Test. Okay. Hey. And so John was walking around. I saw him on television, and I stopped to watch this program. And John was knocking on people's doors and asking them, how come your kids aren't in school today? And I saw that, and I said, wow, you don't see that from anybody, especially not a superintendent. And so most of you probably don't know, but John was a retired also Major General from the Air Force. And so John, prior to coming to Aurora Public Schools, was the executive director for the accident investigation for the Columbia accident. And so that was a huge win for Aurora Public Schools when he came over there, John, and took the helm. And I admired that because, I said, this is an individual that really cares about the kids. And so when we came over that day and sat down with General Hackett and now with General Berry, and they started talking, and they had something in common. And it turns out that they lived in the same identical apartment during War College School, but not at the same time, but different times. But they were at the same identical apartment, so they kind of hit it off. And at the end of our conversation, John looked at me and said, Willie, I don't know what we can do, but let's see what we can do together. And so I often reflect back to that, what happened at DPS and then what happened at Aurora. And then about a week or two later, John called me up and said, let's start an aviation program. So we started up this aviation program, and that program lasted throughout John's tenure there at Aurora Public Schools. He left there, went to the Denver Boys and Girls Club, left there and went to the Wings Over the Rockies, and each place we went, we followed John and working with the kids. We've had several thousand kids that have come through this program. And I'd like to invite John up to the floor to tell a little bit about himself and the Wings Over the Rockies.
Thank you, Willie. That's very kind, very kind. You know, you meet rare individuals in your life that make a real difference. And certainly from the chance to work with Willie and certainly with Charlie, it really has been a real pleasure. So let me just begin by, first of all, thanking Dr. Curry and coming here and everybody representing the organizations. It really is an honor to be able to stand here today and stand in front of you and be able to accept this award, and it really is an appreciation. But also I want to recognize my family, Ellen as my wife. You know, when we got married, I'm a little traditional, so she agreed for a little while that I would make all the major decisions in the family and she would make all the minor decisions. And go figure, all the years we've been married, we've never made a major decision. But I really want to thank our kids. We got 5 kids. We got 8 grandchildren. I'm really blessed. They're spread all over the country, as usual, as a lot of the families are today. We got Bob Anno, who's a son-in-law. He flies for airlines. He's, United Airlines, a little commonality there as it goes along. But also I want to thank the staff. The staff has put this together for us. And guys back there, we got kids up there learning how to fly simulators over there was part of our program. And so thank you, everybody, for doing this today. But, when you want to recognize our fellow award winners and everybody today, it's just an honor to be standing here with you all today. Charlie and I go back quite a years, but he has been on the board for 22 years, and he's been chair for 10 years. And really the partnership that we've had, really, I think I've been blessed because to have him as a chair of a board and an organization. But for 22 years, he's been associated with Wings Over the Rockies. We've only been open for 30. So it gives you an idea of the contributions that he's made and the deep appreciation I do have for not him as a leader, but also as a friend. When we talk about metaphors, I'd like to just offer one for you. We've all been to different kinds of air shows. You see aircraft that are doing acrobatics and they're putting off smoke, and sometimes they're, up there, and kids will look up there. And what we're hoping here, and I know everyone who's got an award today is that when you look up, you see what the art of the possible is, and you offer opportunities that children sometimes, young people, high school, our students upstairs, didn't even know existed. But having the opportunity to be able to look up there really is an opportunity for them to continue to be bold, decisive, courageous, with visions of fire for the future. So on behalf of my family, we certainly want to thank you for this award. Thanks to the President for his opportunity to do this, to get associated with amazing people, that make such a difference in this country. And certainly, I just want to end with, God bless America. Thank you.
The next gentleman I'd like to invite up to the floor, tell you a little bit about him and how we first met. I was invited years ago, probably close to 15, almost 18 years ago, over to Lockheed Martin. And so as a nonprofit organization, they had invited several organizations from all over the Denver, Colorado metro area to meet their employees. And because this was an opportunity for their employees to meet nonprofit organizations to see if they wanted to work with those organizations. So I was there, and this gentleman walked up to me, and he said, "Hello, my name is Mr. Ralph Dergans," and he says, "I am the president of the Lockheed Martin Employee Retirement Association." And so we sat and talked, and he asked me about what we did, Shades of Blue, and so I told him a little about that. He said, "Let's go to lunch." And so we went to lunch over in Castle Rock one day, and we're sitting there talking, and I told him about what we were doing in the program that we started in Aurora with the aviation program. And Ralph said to me, he says, you know, when I was an active employee at Lockheed Martin, he said, I tried to do something similar to what you guys are doing, but I couldn't get it off the ground. He said, I'd like to join you. So Ralph came over and joined us over at Aurora Public Schools. So we had a 10-week aviation course going on with the kids, teaching them how to fly airplanes. And then we started up a 10-week session in engineering. And that was headed up by Ralph, which we had engineers from all different disciplines of engineering, structural, civil, aeronautical, mechanical, electrical. You know, those kids were being exposed to this in middle school and high school. And so Ralph joined us doing that, and then he worked with us over in Aurora Public Schools, and then went from there over to Littleton Public Schools. And we started the same program in Littleton, and that's been going, Ralph, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's either 12 or 13 years. 12 years? 13 years at Littleton Public Schools. I was at one of the events about a month ago. And Ralph, I'd like to invite you to come up and chat and tell a little bit about you. And by the way, Ralph started with the Martin Corporation.
The Martin Corporation.
Martin Corporation. Just so you know, I visited with Martin State Airport
Okay.
in Maryland
Right.
about a month ago. And we're gonna start working, Martin, and Martin is the original Martin for Lockheed Martin Corporation.
Right.
Ralph started there in 1958.
I was 2. Actually, I was 17. Hello, daughter. I'm getting shy here. Well, thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Doctor, for everything and everything else. I really appreciate it. Charlie, Andre, Vanessa, and the general. I remember you during the failure, shuttle failure programs. I was part of that way in the back. My volunteering, Willie summarized quite nicely with Shades of Blue. And what we do and have done successfully for County Aurora about 15 years now is try to scare kids straight on what the field of engineering and science is really about. It's my daughter over here, she went through one of those for physicians where our school system has one of those to make sure they know what they want to do. And now we have some 100 instructors that we can call upon, none of which are here really, except Willie every now and then. And we're going strong. Every year, we've had about 150 to 200 kids register for our program with the Shades of Blue in partnership with Littleton Public Schools. And it's just getting better and better. And my former employer, Lockheed Martin, or the Glen L. Martin Airplane Company, now is really heavily involved. And Littleton has a little thing called EPIC, Exploratory Programs for Innovative Careers. And it's a hands-on thing. And we now are part of that, as is Shades of Blue. And so everything in this regard is going now. My volunteering that I had mentioned is a little different. It's not just all aerospace. Before that young lady right over there was in Littleton Public Schools, a bunch of us daddies in the neighborhood built a bunch of playground equipment for a school that my son and daughter went to. And ever since then, I've been involved. That's 1976. So that's a lot of hours and a lot of time. It says in the program there, mentoring. We've had a very successful mentoring program where individuals are paired up with a child and have lunch with them. And that's what you do, and for as many years. One boy, it's the perfect example He was a second grader, and he had some social problems. He never got recess. He always spent his time in the principal's office. And I had him through 5th grade, and then followed him through middle school and high school. And the other day, he gave me a call and said, guess what, I'm a father. His first child. He's been through trade school, he's working, having a ball, and that makes it all worthwhile. And that's a typical story of many, many of these children. So over those 76 to now, we're 2 years short of 50 years of doing this. It's been very satisfying and very good for the kids, and to take a rocket scientist or a spacecraft scientist and stay involved in all the aerospace stuff has just kept me going, kept me alive. I just love it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ralph. And by the way, if it wasn't for this guy, I know a few people who wouldn't be here today. Quite a few. So here's the man. There's one there, and one there, and probably one there, and one here. So, thank you, Ralph. Appreciate that. The next young I won't say young lady, but young woman. Young lady. We go way back. When she first started, I think I first met you when I was a flight attendant for United Airlines, when you first started with United working as a supervisor. Going back to the late 1980s. And then by that time I had transitioned from being a flight attendant over to a pilot. And Miss Vanessa Blackdoll Jameson, was hired in over at our flight training center and working in our pilot new hire as a recruiter and with United. And so during the late 80s, unfortunately, there was in the early 70s, about 1978, there was a class action lawsuit that was brought against United Airlines because of the practices of hiring minorities. And so the vice president at the time, by the name of Captain Bill Traub, unfortunately I heard he just recently passed away. It was a good friend of mine. And Captain Traub brought a number of us, Captain James Harrison, who was a Tuskegee Airman, Captain Rick McCullough, the attorney for United Airlines, John Bowserman, and we had a couple other captains, Ken Spencer, who was over the pilot new hire department at United. And he brought us all into his office and said, you know, we have a problem going on. Congresswoman Carter Collins is getting ready to rake us over the coals because we didn't comply with the court decree of 1978. So we have to hire X number of minority pilots. And so they brought us in, they made me a recruiter for United, and that's where, around this time is where I met Ms. Jameson. They brought her in and she became a recruiter for United. And we found ourselves roaming around the country and working different conventions with the Tuskegee Airmen and the Organization of Black Airline Pilots and the whole works. And Ms. Vanessa Jameson and I have known each other for all these years, and we've been friends all these years. And she joined the board of members as Shades of Blue Board of Directors and have been there and from years. So I'd like to invite Vanessa up, and I'd like Vanessa to tell you about her current role.
You know, there's a common denominator that's called Williams. And as a common denominator, we all know that we all have had an impact, Willie's had an impact in our lives. And I am now currently the executive director for the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, but it used to be the Organization of Black Airline Pilots. When I started my recruiting in '89 for United, it was a reason for what I was doing. So everybody now talks about qualified, and I said, those of you that are in the training center, you know that you have to pass those check rides. It's not an if or an and. So you can't talk about not being qualified. But during that time, there was a lot that we went through in that recruitment period. But I have to say that United had the largest numbers, and we were extremely successful with what we were doing. Volunteerism is just a part of who I am. I volunteer with everyone because I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have someone that would say, hey, Vanessa, you could be a pilot. So we have a job to do, and that's create the awareness of aviation and aerospace, also create that desire for it, ensuring that young people know that this is available to them. So this work that we do continues on forever and ever. It's just this opportunity right now for me to say thank you. Thank you for the years, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity and recognition.
Now, the next gentleman that I'd like to introduce, we go back also all the way to the 1990s. We actually met shortly after I met his brother. Many of you probably who are Bronco fans probably know Mr. Ken Lanier. He was the starting right tackle for the Denver Broncos. And you look at Andre, hey, you play football? And Andre did play football in college and so forth. But Andre and I, we met Ken back around 1992. One day I had my airplane parked out at Front Range Airport. It was hangared in one end of the hangar. And then this guy come taxiing by. And he sees me out there with my airplane, and he stops his airplane, gets out, comes over, and introduces himself, and said, I'm Ken Lanier. And he was flying an airplane that he inherited from his uncle. And so we met, and we became friends, and been friends ever since then. And then he introduced me to Andre, and we ended up taking a trip down to Florida together, him and his family of mine, and we had a great time down there. And then Andre came on after we started up Shades of Blue, and joined Shades of Blue, and as a board member, he became our chief operating officer for many, many years through the transition of dealing with the wings, Aurora Public Schools, Littleton Public Schools. He would come out and help. And then we even had, I would take some of the Tuskegee Airmen over to his school because Andre was a principal over in Aurora. And there was one young man, he called me up and said, hey, I got a young man there that may be interested in going into the Air Force Academy. And so we got his name, we ran his name up to the flagpole, and he got into the Air Force Academy, and he came out of there, and he just retired here recently from the Air Force, flying C-17s, and he called me up here recently and said, hey, I got hired with United Airlines. So Sean, that's another young man. His name is Michael Alexander, so be on the lookout for him, okay? And this is Dr. Andre Lanier, and Andre is served as school administrators and school board administrators in several schools, adjunct professor. And I'd like Andre to come on up and say hello and tell a little bit about himself.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being here. Some of you I have known for decades, and some of you I met just recently, and it's interesting to hear how there's so many people across the country that have poured their life into helping young people. So I started off in Ohio, and I moved here in 1985 before there was conversation about global warming. That's how far back it was. So long story short, Willie and I met through my brother. I was in a school, and what we wanted to do was introduce our young people to the best and brightest that have contributed to our country. So Willie brought out the Tuskegee Airmen, and those gentlemen at that time were what, 80s? Some 90, 85, 90 years old. And so because of that, our young people got a chance to literally talk to history. And so these gentlemen were the first African-American pilots in American history. And so as Willie brought up, Michael Alexander was one of the gentlemen that was in the audience, and he was a bright-eyed 7th grader at the time. And so he came up with some other individuals and introduced herself, and long story short, went to the Air Force Academy, ended up applying for the Air Force, and now he is in queue for United Airlines. So sometimes there's random acts, but they're not really random. And so a lot of people have benefited from your effort, Shades of Blue, and I just want to thank all of you for traveling the country in order to recognize some individuals that volunteered, but really what they're doing is they're just living their life and they're being who they are. So I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank my wife and my children for being here, and my first of 7 grandchildren is here. So Zeke, thank you for coming. All right, thank you very much.
Let us give a great big hand to all of our honorees. And on behalf of President Joseph Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, we thank you for all of your service to your community and to this great nation. And as we said at the end of the document, keep answering the call to serve, because the country is counting on you. People just like you are the ones that I'm looking for, those that weren't expecting it, because this award is not built on what you say about yourself. It's built on what other people say about you.
We'll be concluding with our service here in just about 2 minutes, I promise you. My wife used to always say, hey, you give Willie the mic, and oh my goodness, here we go. But I promise you, I'll conclude in about 2 minutes. But I want to talk a little bit about Ed Dwight and tell you a little bit about his story. But I want to acknowledge my wife, Pereza, in the back right there, President. You know, she fusses at me a lot of times because of all of the things I'm doing and traveling and running around with Shades of Blue, but she's in my corner 100%. And I'm also, thank you, President, for what you've done over the years. We've been married 35 years, by the way. And I'm actually looking in the audience, and Adrian, I'd like you to stand up, Adrian. Adrian Clark. He is one of our original board members at Shades of Blue. And Adrian has been here. Adrian is my cousin, by the way, Robert, another cousin. And so we're all related. So we joined forces many years ago, and Charlie, you remember Adrian, and helped us with our initially getting off the ground with Shades of Blue and stuff like that. But I'll conclude by talking just a brief moment about Ed Dwight. Ed Dwight was hand-selected back in 1961 by President John F. Kennedy to become the first African-American astronaut candidate. And unfortunately, as he's going through his program, Ed did not make it through the program after the Kennedy assassination, because Kennedy was assassinated in November of 1963, and then Ed got moved out of the program shortly after the Kennedy assassination. They moved him from out of Edwards Air Force Base and Test Pilot School briefly over to China Lake, and then from China Lake out to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. But in the early 60s and 70s, and the reason I talk a little bit about Ed is that when I was growing up, I would go by my grandparents' house. We lived in California. My grandparents were in Kansas City, Kansas, and we traveled back and forth every year to visit with the grandparents. But every time I got to my grandmother's house, there was a photograph of a gentleman posing in his football uniform, and that gentleman was Ed Dwight. They actually dated my aunt when they were kids. And so to make a long story short, I go by there and my grandmother says, see that young man right there? He's an astronaut. And so growing up in California, in Palmdale, California, not too far from Edwards Air Force Base, every day we would hear these sonic booms. I look up in the sky and see a contrail going across the sky. And my father would take us out to these air shows, and I see all these people flying around. I see skydivers jumping out of the airplanes. I said, I don't want to jump out of airplanes. I want to fly. So I grew up wanting to be a pilot. And then I wanted to be an astronaut because this was right after the very first, NASA started in 1958, and then they selected the Mercury 7 astronauts, and then they launched Alan Shepard, Gus Grissom, and then John Glenn into space in 1961 and 2. And so I remember watching these little grainy photographs, videos on television. We had a black and white TV at the time. We didn't have color. And I remember seeing Alan Shepard going up in space for the first time in the parabolic arc and coming down. Well, right after that happened, my grandmother would tell us about Ed Dwight being an astronaut. So I didn't know any astronauts. And so now fast forward to 1977, I was transferred from college in California here to Metro State. And one of my instructors said, hey, I have a friend of mine, I went to test pilot school, and I'm gonna have him here as our speaker. And that gentleman turned out to be Ed Dwight. And in 1977, Ed came to my class, and we spoke. And after he spoke to us, and I went over and said, hey, you don't know me, but you know my family, but I want to be an astronaut. And growing up, all my brothers and sisters, they asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I want to be an astronaut. They say, you're not going to be an astronaut, you're going to be an astronaut. That's what they called me, an astronaut. So, but finding meeting Ed, he got me an application to apply for NASA. And I applied, and I still have that rejection letter today. And that was because you had to have a certain set of credentials that the average person didn't have. Most likely you had to go to test pilot school, you had to have an engineering degree, you had to be a pilot, you had so many different things that the average person didn't have. I was on a path to be an airline pilot and not on a path to be an astronaut. So, but over the years, and the reason I say that, and because of everybody in here is working in the STEM, STEAM, and STEAM++ areas, you know, a lot of these young people don't understand what it takes to be an airline pilot, what it takes to be a scientist, an engineer, building rockets and launching them up to Mars and landing them on Mars, being a flight attendant, being a mechanic, an airline pilot. But these are jobs that are valuable jobs in the industry, aviation, aerospace. We need about 5 million people right now today. And so talk to your community, talk to your kids and your friends, and pass the word on that this is an opportunity for them. And that's what this is all about here today, is recognizing these heroes that normally most people never get a chance to see. But today, you guys are in the spotlight. And I want to thank President Biden for making this possible with the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for people like us that normally don't get recognized. I'd like to thank Dr. Saucedo for coming out, and Dr. Karen Ivey for being here, who's with the University of Arizona Global Campus, a dean who helps out with Shades of Blue, and Dr. Curry. You notice they're all doctors. I'm a captain, but they're all doctors. But Dr. Curry traveled all the way from North Carolina to be here to make this day possible. So with that being said, thank each and every one of you, and thank the guests.
When you're done, I forgot something.
Okay. So, I'm just wrapping up right now, and so I'm going to hand the mic over to you. All right.
architect for Toll Brothers in the country, and his wife, Dawn, who has brought a little international class to our family. She's from Dalton originally, and 4 wonderful grandkids. Dr. Finn. Five, I forgot.
Nice to meet you.